So Section 2 of the order addresses temporary towers, and it's a pretty narrow and limited discussion. It concerns the public notification requirements as part of the antenna site registration process, which I believe applies to facilities that are taller than 200 feet or that are within the glide path of an airstrip. And the only exclusion here is that if temporary facilities are not going to remain in a particular location for more than 60 days, and there is minimal or no ground disturbance, then you don't have to comply with the public notification process, which is something that can eat up a good chunk of those 60 days. So it's a reasonable exclusion, but it's a very narrow and limited exclusion. And again, to be clear, it only concerns the public notification part of the process. Antenna site registration still has to take place for these facilities. There'll just be a box to check indicating that the exclusion applies. Finally, in the last section of the order, which addresses the shot clock, there are a couple clarifications of the shot clock. The order confirms the shot clock commences when an application is filed, and that the time frames under the shot clock are told when an applicant receives a notice of incompleteness, and restarts when the applicant submits the requested information. The order further confirms that the notice of incompleteness must identify the code provision, ordinance, application instruction, or otherwise publicly stated procedures that require the information to be submitted, so jurisdictions can't make up new requirements as you go through the process. The shot clock is amended so that, similar to Section 6409, if there is a subsequent notice of incompleteness, the jurisdiction only has 10 days to review and determine whether or not that the resubmitted application is incomplete. And if the 10 days passes, then no further notice of incompleteness will toll the shot clock. The order clarifies that local moratoria cannot suspend the shot clock. So whether you filed an application before or after a moratoria is adopted doesn't make any difference. The shot clock timeframes still run. And then finally, the order clarifies that the shot clock applies to DAS and small cell installations. And unfortunately, the courts or the commission stays with its position that the shot clock does nothing more than create a rebuttable presumption of a violation of the Telecommunications Act. Violations of the shot clock timeframes do not result in deemed granted applications. So this video has gone on probably too long, but the order's long. But I do have a couple questions, I think, that are outstanding or that remain with the order. One is, why does the FCC exclude light poles from the definition of a non-tower structure? And it's really unclear. We use light standards and lampposts and field lighting equipment and utility poles that happen to be also used for lighting all the time. So what's the point of excluding those? There is a requirement. Another question is, there's a requirement for a wireless tower or base station to qualify as existing under 6409 that it have either prior land use or siting approval or prior approval from the state. And in California, if you have a CPCN and a notice to proceed with the construction of a particular project, does that qualify as prior state level approval, so that 6409 would apply? There is an oddity, I think, in the order, in that it seems to encourage co-location on on utility poles, which is strange. Why would it make sense to load up existing utility poles when there are plenty of poles to be used? So there's an odd result there, and then there also is a question about, does it make any difference under the order whether facilities are owned by the government, by the state, or a local agency, or by a co-op? And the answer there generally is that the order doesn't seem to be concerned with ownership, and in fact, it suggests that for government-owned facilities, if the government's acting in a proprietary capacity, that's excluded from the order. So if you're negotiating a lease and it takes you 9 months to negotiate a lease, you can't complain about how long it took. Anyway, there's a number of questions. There will be more. So there you go, 155 pages. I'm available for anybody that has any questions about this. And again, we'll let you know when we have meetings or panels or webinars, etc., to discuss it further. Thanks.